I'm Jordan Hadfield. This is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we talk 28 years later, The Bone Temple with Chase Fugel and Eric Wood. The Bone Temple is a 2026 horror film, the fourth in this zombie franchise. It's directed by Nia DaCosta, starring Jack O'Donnell, Ray Fiennes, and Alfie Williams. If you were to imagine a group of villains worse than zombies, would you come up with a band of Teletubby-loving, tracksuit-sporting, devil-worshipping British yuppies? Nope, me neither. Get in, we're going cinephiling.
Faster, film critic.
Eric, it's nice to have you back on the pod, buddy. Welcome back.
Thanks, good to be here.
Are you a fan of the 28 franchise?
28 fans? Yeah. Yeah, I like 28.
What's your favorite 28 film?
I really liked 28 Years Later.
Okay.
It was fresh.
The Bone Temple or the one right before
The
this
one right before it, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing if you liked 28 Years Later, then you also liked The Bone Temple. I mean, they're so similar.
Yeah.
In fact,
Kind of.
they were shot at the same time, which I just learned. I didn't
Really?
realize that. They were shot like back to back. The third one's coming. However, the third one has not been shot yet. That was dependent on how these two sequels did. And they've done really well.
Yeah.
But
I've been super surprised.
I think if you liked 28 Years Later, then you like Bone Temple. And if you struggled with the tone of 28 Years, then you're going to struggle with Bone Temple.
Unless you go in thinking that it's going to be a zombie movie like 28 Years Later was.
I
Yeah.
hear you, and we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, I felt like 28 Years Later brings a little more depth to a story that I don't think Danny Boyle knew he was going to jump into, but I thought it was a fresh take on it. I was talking to another movie colleague that we have over on our channel. He mentioned how emotional he felt like the 28 Years Later was. And I didn't ever, that wasn't what struck me about it. I mean, first time I saw it with my wife, and like she was seeing some gripping, some crazy blood
Violent,
spattering,
grotesque.
violent. Yeah. And so
Absolutely.
I think I would have led with those, but he mentioned that and I was like, okay. I was like, I do need to rewatch because I haven't seen that one since Theater Experience either. But I was positive on both of them, and I thought it was really cool to see Nia DaCosta take the directing role, take that from Danny Boyle, and change it up a little bit because it did feel distinctly different to me in viewing the two, the Bone Temple and the 28 Years Later.
There were some differences between the two, but I think those two are far more similar than they are to 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Or 28 Weeks.
It almost feels like a entirely different universe.
Very much so. Yeah, at least to me, I would say it's very, very different. And it's that difference that I struggle with because I wasn't super high on 28 Years Later. I felt that it was narratively messy. It was just so different than what I was expecting. And I mean different, not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So going into Bone Temple, I had heard a lot of good things going into this film. I heard this film was better than 28 Years. I heard that Bone Temple was really impressing people. And so I was excited going into it. And yet I found serious tonal issues with this one as well.
Can you go into your narrative issues, like what struck you specifically that set you up for disappointment, I guess, case in point?
In 28 Years?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did a whole podcast on 28 Years, and it's worth checking out. But I just felt like narratively speaking, it was a mess. It would bounce around from theme to theme. First, it's like Spike and his father, then it's Spike and his mother, and then it's Spike and this doctor, and then it's Spike by himself. And you've got fast zombies, and you've got slow zombies, and you've got alpha zombies, and you've got earthworm zombies, and you've got zombies giving birth to healthy babies. And then at the end, we meet like this Teletubby-loving group of yuppies, and
The end of
that
was,
point in time,
was
I didn't
pretty
even know
rough.
what it was, and I just
the
felt
fingers.
like the fingers. And at that point, I
Which
was
was
just
weird.
Like,
That was a big tonal shift. I'm with you on that one. That one to me seemed big shift. I was like, does that work?
they set you up to love the father, then they immediately turn on the father, and they set you up to love the mother. Then the mother dies, and now you're looking at Spike like becoming a man. And I just felt like the movie. What happened to the rage virus? I mean, there was more of that in 28 Years than there was the Bone Temple, which I want to get to. But I felt like it was just so different from 28 Days and 28 Weeks. Like Chase said earlier, it just feels like a different franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Bone Temple, on the other hand, I didn't find it nearly as messy from a narrative standpoint. You had two parallel stories that you're following very easily until they intersect towards the end. But tonally, this film had some issues for me. Just like in 28 Years Later, Bone Temple also had some tonal weaknesses that I just couldn't get on board with.
Mm-hmm.
However, just because I didn't find the narrative messy in Bone Temple doesn't mean that the narrative was good in Bone Temple, and I did have problems with that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
The rage virus and the infected largely take a back seat in this film. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of zombie things going on. There
Yeah.
are some scenes, but oh man, there are some scenes in this film that are super gruesome, super gory.
Yeah.
But what happened to the whole fight for survival against the infected that made the first two films so good? It's not here. It's Jimmy Crystal and his fingers that are the antagonists. The infected are really just a far sideline. And yeah, that didn't really work for me. So narratively, although the film is technically better than 28 Years Later, I still didn't enjoy the narrative of this film. And tonally, it didn't work for me at all.
I thought the relationship of Samson and the doctor took a step backwards too. It seemed like in the first movie they were a little bit further along, maybe a little bit closer than they were when this movie started. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just what I remember. I remember thinking that he was already doing tests on him, that they were somewhat familiar with each other. And it seemed like it was just getting kicked off in the start of this movie.
I wasn't sure. It felt like it alluded to it for sure because I was established there was some sort of relationship, and I wasn't sure where this would come in. If this was going to be prequel style when I first went to the Bone Temple, is this going to be how the Bone Temple is created, or what? I do feel like, as Jordan was talking about, the tone and the story narratively is more compact, more compressed. Like it is a smaller scale, and so I think that works well. I didn't have trouble with the story from 28 Years Later as much. Like it was definitely different pieces going on, but I did feel like it connected them enough for me. I do think that the zombies are more of a byproduct almost. That they're less the worry. Jimmy and the fingers become the worry. They're putting down zombies without any problem.
Right. 28 Days Later was a true, horrific, human virus, quote, zombie, unquote, film. 28 Weeks Later very much followed that. And then when we get into 28 Years Later, it just feels like we're dealing with an entirely different animal in the 28 Years sequels. An animal that's more horror comedy, far less serious, far less scary, every bit as gruesome, maybe even more gruesome, but you didn't get any of that horror comedy tone in the 28 days or the 28 weeks. And I think the Bone Temple just goes further and further down that same path set by 28 Years Later. And so it just feels like it's, again, a different universe. I mean,
I don't disagree with that either. I think that it seems to me that this project was conceptualized in 3 phases, like the traditional trilogy style thing. And it does seem to want to pivot. I will say, in my thoughts along the 28 franchise, like I've seen plenty of the zombie storytelling. Like I don't know how much more can be done other than we have faster zombies that are, like I think there's a lot that's been done there.
which 28 Days largely invented. The faster zombie. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what 28 Days is known
that
for.
was the the reinvention. What really juiced up the series was that was one of the big differences there. Then I think they turned into a lot of these just zombies, Night of the Living Dead stuff and different tropes that way. And so I do think that this emotional sort of shift into parenting and being a mom and survival and who is, like, it almost just evolves into something with a little more, depth to an extent.
I mean, look, we've lived in this world now for 28 years. I'm not expecting to completely duplicate 28 Days Later. We have to take the narrative in new directions. We have to explore new ideas, and I completely welcome that. So I am fine with a story that dives deep into characters that aren't infected, and maybe they aren't even dealing with the infected all the time. Maybe we're focused in on their survival and other issues that come up and other antagonists. That's fine. My problem, again, is the tone. We went from a very serious horror film to what I consider to be an unfunny horror comedy.
Mhm.
And it feels to me that Bone Temple embraces that and walks even further down that path.
Yeah.
For example, there's a scene with Dr. Ian Kelson, and he's drugged up Samson for the first time. And then they start dancing to Ordinary World by Duran Duran.
Mm-hmm.
And Samson, of course, is totally nude with his donkey dick flailing around. And
Jordan's long been a fan. of
Dr.
Samson.
Yeah,
I actually am a fan. If I was a zombie, the first thing I'd do is take off my clothes.
you've got Dr. Kelson. I'm just going to skip right over that.
Hey,
got-
no. Let's not skip over that because that is a good detail. Whoever fought to have Samson's big schlong out, props to them because I don't think zombies would actually wear clothes like they do in The Walking Dead.
Had to have been Ralph.
I hate to break it to you, Chase, but Samson, played by Chi Lewis Perry, was never naked in this film. He's wearing a prosthetic the entire time.
There's a scene where he sits down and
You've done your
everything just
research.
looks really fake.
Yeah, so I see Dr. Ian Kelson all in red, and I see the naked Samson, and they're dancing to Duran Duran, and I'm just like, am I supposed to be laughing? I don't
know what
understand.
it is.
I just saw Samson rip a head off a guy with the spinal cord still attached. Like it was gruesome.
Yeah.
And then literally moments later, they're like frolicking in a field of flowers, of daisies with Duran
bones.
Duran.
This was
And-
after his drugging, though. Correct?
Yeah, it's after
So I mean, I
they're
do
getting
think
high
that
and loving on each other.
I
and
do
I'm just
think
like,
that is
what?
part of the distinct difference. Is he's able to go into that sort of psychosis or crazy. That's not who you've been introduced to this character as. It's a distinct difference there.
I found it way more odd than significant. I was
Mhm.
way more distracted by what was going on.
Although the film didn't work for me, I'll tell you what, it's working for just about everybody else. I mean, this film is
I
getting
know.
great reviews.
crazy.
Letterboxd 4.0. On Rotten Tomato, it's got a 93% audience score. Here's just a couple of the reviews that I pulled off Letterboxd. Joshua Kane says, 28 beers later, and I believe this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Mhm.
4.5 stars. Now, I do agree with Joshua Kane here. It would take about 28 beers for me to enjoy this film. Cobb writes, felt this shit in my bones. 5 stars.
Pun
Andy
intended.
writes, this is the best film of the franchise. 5 stars. And Katya writes, Nia DaCosta, I was not familiar with your game. Holy shit. 5 stars. I mean, people are just
What-
loving.
What did you guys think about her directing?
I thought she was great.
Sure, to talk about the direction of Nia DaCosta, the film is beautiful. I mean, there are some shots
Really?
in this film. I thought there were some shots in this film that are really cool. The way she pans in around the Bone Temple and some of the landscape
The Bone
shots.
Temple was
and
really cool.
there were some things in the film that I thought were really, really cool, particularly for a zombie film. And I felt the very same way about 28 Years Later.
Yep.
The film aesthetically is very pleasing.
Mhm.
Very pleasing.
Beautiful country, beautiful
Beautiful
part of the
country.
world.
Yeah, some of the way it captures some of the gruesomeness, particularly in 28 Years Later, more than Bone Temple.
I thought there were some
It's really
production.
cool.
There were production design elements that were really cool, like Ralph cleaning out the bones and stuff, and taking the ligaments or whatever is on there, and like, yeah, I thought there were a lot of cool elements. And to me, we haven't touched on Jack O'Connor at all, and his performance, and even what his attire and his crew's attire, to me, stands out so much in the backdrop of what's a beautiful landscape, but then you have these visually stunning Teletubby-esque characters in their jumpsuits. To me, I thought that was really interesting and fun.
I'm glad it worked for you. Let's talk about Jack O'Connor for a minute, because I do think that he gave a great performance as Sir Jimmy Crystal. And by the way, did you know that Sir Jimmy Crystal is based on a real-life person named Jimmy Savile? Jimmy Savile died in 2011. He was a super famous British TV host. He was the host of Top of Pops and Jimmy'll Fix It. He was also a radio personality. He was widely known and praised for his charity work. And yet, after his death, he was largely accused of being a sexual abuser.
Oh,
Turns out he was a really bad dude. I mean, he was hurting children and he was hurting people all along the way of his very successful career. And I think he was very flamboyant and wild and loved. And apparently that's who Sir Jimmy Crystal's character was influenced by. I thought that was pretty interesting. But I do think Jack O'Connor did a great job portraying this character. I want to talk a little bit about Ray Fiennes, because Ray Fiennes is an incredible actor. An incredible actor. And yet I hear people coming out of this film saying, Rafe is so good. Rafe is amazing in this. Like, give him the Oscar. I don't see it. And
I don't see it either.
it's not because he is not putting it in. He plays the character just fine. It's nothing transformative. I don't see a performance on the screen there that's really,
Oscar worthy.
Yeah, anything next
not
to
at all.
Oscar-worthy.
Yeah.
Not that he's not an Oscar-worthy actor, because he
Yeah.
absolutely is. But this performance, out of all that he's put on screen for us, like this performance, I don't see it.
To them, I'd say go watch Conclave.
Amen.
I think I land a little higher with him. I do think there's some nuance to what he does in this character. But overall, for sure, I think an Academy-worthy performance. He'll never get an Academy Award for any of these. I would love to see him be in conversation for stuff. I think that there's enough depth to a character like this. I mean, I think you get a lot early on where he is exploring before he really starts drugging this Samson with consistency. You've got a little more depth on why he's doing some of his stuff in some of these little details in his little cave or cavern or whatever, where he seems to kind of let his guard down a little bit, and he's still that kind of scientist. And even towards the end, I just think there's a lot that he's doing. He seems to like these, because again, he's Ralph Fiennes. He doesn't need to do these things. Like he's got a resume, but I think it's a really interesting role to take, and I think he must really enjoy it.
I think it is an interesting role for him to take for sure.
I think he wanted to do something fun.
And maybe that's the case. I just feel like Ray Fiennes is noteworthy in this film because he's Ray Fiennes and not because his performance is incredible.
If somebody did, I think it'd be fair to say, in comparison to the rest of the cast, he is leagues above everybody else. Still nowhere near Oscar worthy, though.
I mean, I thought Jack O'Connor was really good.
Yeah, I thought
really?
I thought Jack was
Yeah.
solid.
I could
zero
not
problems with
stand
that.
him.
But is it that you can't stand him or you can't stand his character? Because I
Both.
agree, I don't like his
Both.
character, but his portrayal
Both.
of
Maybe
that
it's
character, I
also
think,
the
was really
writing.
good.
There's a difference between not liking the character and not liking the experience when they're on screen. And I didn't like the experience when he was on screen.
Yeah.
See, I think the experience on screen is fantastic. I think he elevates what is there significantly.
I didn't see anything convincing enough to make me believe that he was the leader of all these people. He was charismatic, like a cult leader would be, but it just felt so artificial, a little bit silly, this cast of characters, most of them super dull in the head, and him being this weird, charismatic leader who doesn't ever fight anybody or show that he is willing to do the dirty work.
So I agree with half of what you said. I do not like the characters in this band of villains, right? I don't like
Are you convinced by him being the leader?
in the context of the writing, yes, because these guys are idiots. They're all idiots, right? And he's convinced them that Satan is his father, and they're dumb enough to believe it. So out of fear, they'll do what he says.
I mean, I guess. Yeah. I think I want my antagonists to be a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
I think that's my main problem with it. And as soon as I see them so unconvincing and stupid, it's just, I can't connect with it. I can't even enjoy it when they're doing their bad shit on screen.
Yeah, so I agree with that as well. I think the point of disagreement is just because Jimmy Crystal is a character I don't like, and I feel like his tone doesn't work in this franchise, that Jack O'Connor is submitting a less than stellar performance. I think in his character that I don't like, I think Jack O'Connor puts a great performance in. It's just a character I don't like. I don't like the writing around it, but the acting for the character on the page, I think Jack O'Connor crushes.
So your problem is more with Alex Garland's creation of this character than...
Yes. I think the character is lame. I think it's silly. I think it's absurd. I think the fingers are unintelligent and unconvincing and boring. The threat here needs to be the zombies, and it doesn't need to be a band of half-wits.
Well, even if it is going to be the band of half-wits, it could have been done way better than that.
Yeah, and like you, I think it was you, Eric, that mentioned all throughout this film, these intense, fast, violent, naked zombies are coming at the Jimmies, this band of morons. And it's like John Wick. Like they just boom, 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 and zombies are dead.
Yeah.
Stab, 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 dead. There's no threat there. There's no fear there. And to me, that is not the spirit of 28 Days Later. It is not the spirit of 28 Weeks Later. It should not be the spirit in 28 Years Later. That is my problem with this film.
So my take on the Fingers and Jimmy is they were not ever worried about those zombies. Like the main threat that is the threat to the island, they were not worried about.
Agreed.
And they were dropping zombies, like you're saying, John Wick style, without another beat. And I see where you're coming from on they were almost handling and dispatching them too easily. So they weren't a threat anymore. I still perceive them as a threat because I still am watching Samson before he's drugged rip, a skull off another body or whatever. I think that the Jimmies were foolish enough. Like they were not trying to overthrow Sir Jimmy, except for you did have one that was looking for an opportunity. And then you're introduced to Spike, who's also not fully committed, but knows his best way to survive is to stay with the Fingers. And so I did think that little subplot, I can't think of the character's name, but the one that survives through the end of it and that he runs off with. Yeah, I felt there was more tension still.
Her name was Jimmy, by the way.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I think that every time we saw a zombie kill somebody, it was somebody we didn't know. I mean, the zombie and the zombie killings, as horrific and gruesome as they were really outside of the main two storylines here, which is Dr. Kelson and Samson and
The Jimmies.
Jimmies.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is I felt like Spike was so muted in this film. Like, I thought he was going to step up and kind of lead the film, similar to 28 Years Later, and he didn't. He was really just, again, a side character. And I don't mean the first side character. I mean, like, the fifth side character, right? I mean, he's there. He's important. I'm not going to say he's not an important part of the Jimmy story, but that's not really what this film is about. You don't say this film's about Spike. You say this film is about Sir Jimmy Crystal and Dr. Ian Kelson.
Well, this one significantly goes away from Spike. Like, you've been
Right.
following Spike in 28 years, and this one definitely takes Spike out of it more.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Iron Maiden scene, because this is getting a lot of love. Eric, you brought it up earlier. Chase, you already said you loved it.
I wouldn't say loved, but it was the most interesting part of the film.
Did you find it funny?
No.
'Cause
Did you find it funny?
I found it very comical.
Really?
It's not something I could take seriously. Again, tonally,
maybe there
there's
was a
nothing
little bit of
scary.
humor.
To me, it was a gag.
I didn't get a lot of humor either, but
I
I'm
thought it
interested
was
to hear
absolutely
Jordan's
hilarious.
take.
When he's dancing around with flames and fire and cape and black makeup, I am laughing.
Really?
Laughing in my seat.
That's crazy.
Like, it was-
Was anybody else in the theater laughing?
No, but the only other person in the theater was Eric.
It was
Eric-
just you two.
No,
I had a
not
buddy there,
really.
too.
Yeah,
couple
there was a
other
couple other people there, but it was a very empty theater.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny. I thought
It was wild.
It was wild,
sure.
For sure. It was absurd. It was crazy. It was fun. It was a fun scene.
I don't know where he got this audio gear from or the electricity to power it, but
He's hardwired all his skulls.
yeah,
Juice it up.
they're actually he turned them into solar panels.
Yeah, that was his original motivation. Build this temple with solar panels so he could play his music.
It's also an antenna too.
Right, to the aliens. They're going to come in the third installment. That's what I hear.
Uh-huh.
Aliens are coming in the third. I think tonally that would work based on what they've done here.
I'm surprised we haven't talked about any of the torture. Like, there's some pretty. I know
Gosh,
we strayed away from it being maybe scary, jump scare, horror movie that way, but there's some torture stuff that is pretty intense and gnarly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They've got
How'd
the
you
family
take
strung
that
up.
stuff?
They're eating the brains. I mean, again, totally squirmed in my chair multiple times, minus the Jimmy
Yeah.
torture scene, which is
Pretty gross.
absolutely trying to drive home how despicable this band of yuppies are.
This didn't make you have any more credibility for Jimmy and his Fingers. They're torturing people, and
Sure. I mean, did this successfully portray the fact that this band of human-hating renegades were incredibly violent and have absolutely no moral compass in any way, shape, or form? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's what the scene does. But the other scenes of graphic violence involve, these infected humans attacking characters that we don't know. And it feels like they're only there to say, see, this does belong in the 28 franchise.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only reason those scenes are there. They do nothing to drive the story forward. They're no part whatsoever of the narrative of this film,
But
other than to say, see, it is 28 years
I
later.
do think that the narrative of this film is how did these people get to this place? The zombies are the monsters, but now you've got people that are doing inhumane, grotesque things.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you.
Well, I think that would have been interesting to explore with the Fingers. How did they get to this place? But it was more like this is them at their most cynical, let's sit and watch as they skin this family alive, and let's make it as
See, and
stylistic as
I
possible.
did think that maybe it would start earlier, and you'd have more of a origin type beginning or a flashback.
Yeah, that would have been
or
much more
something.
interesting.
I- I was still interested. To me, I think that's part of the directing and part of the storytelling with Alex Garland is he's also letting you decide how someone could get to this place.
Yeah, I think the obvious answer is Sir Jimmy Crystal was born into this zombie world, and he spent his entire life living in this zombie world. That's all he knows. My question is, why is he killing people? That's my question. Why isn't he killing zombies? Because there is no motivation for him to turn on the innocent people. Why is he evil?
What can he get from a zombie that he can get things from people who are in this world?
But he's not. He's not.
Not from skinning them.
Yeah, all he's trying.
But by skinning them, he's putting fear into the world where he is the alpha. He becomes worse than Samson because he's skinning these people and he's taking the resources. Like zombies don't have the resources from him. He's not scared of them. Like he's dropping those guys pretty
Like nothing.
like they're nothing, like John Wick style or whatever. But to me, that's more of where this story leads me into some interesting places.
Sure, but what's the end result? Like, you follow that path and you end up in a world where there are no humans outside of the Jimmies and a ton of zombies. Like, why does he want to live in a world where all of the humans are dead except for his 6 fingers and a shit ton of naked zombies? Like, that is the end that I don't understand. I get that there are resources there. I get that he is sick and twisted in the head because of this world he lives in. But what is his motivation? Because it's not just, hey, I want that house, I want that farm, I want this food.
Well, I think
Because
Alex
he walks in,
Garland
he
would
kills
say that it
people,
was
and he
due to his religion.
Sure, but again,
Is Satanism.
where
Yeah.
did that come from? Like,
Yeah, I don't understand where that was born.
I don't understand any of the motivation of this character.
I don't
None of it.
understand where he became sadistic. I don't understand where anybody else in the crew became sadistic. And then they happened to come across each other without killing each other.
Yeah,
And never knowing each other before. It just feels so silly.
yeah, that exactly how it's silly. That's how I read into it. Like,
It's just as silly as the tracksuits and the accents.
exactly. This has become a horror comedy.
I love the tracksuits
Yeah,
and the hair. Don't forget the hair.
Yeah.
Blonde. Everybody's blonde. Everybody's like.
you mentioned that one of the great things about 28 years later is that they're going into depth of character. There is no depth to this character. None.
Yeah.
I see a psycho-sadistic moron
I think
in a
that's why I
tracksuit.
have a hard time appreciating his performance.
Or at least his character. Cillian Murphy at the end of the film shows up. This is a tie back to 28 Days Later, the original film.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's in talks to play a significant part, if not the leading part, in the third installment of 28
There's going to be a
years.
third one?
Mhm.
Of
Third.
course there's going to be a third
Yeah, of
one.
course there's going to be a third one. And I hear he's going to be the main character. That's the idea. Thoughts? What'd you guys think of
I
this?
thought,
I was pro. I liked it.
I'm pro, but very crowd pleasy. I hated it just feels like another part of the tonal disaster.
Yeah, at the end of 28 years later, we meet the tracksuit wearing Jimmys, and there is a huge tonal shift. Well, at the end of Bone Temple, we come across Cillian Murphy's character again, and there's another huge tonal shift. We see one of the Fingers and Spike running for their lives as opposed to cutting through these zombies like a hot knife to warm butter. That's another huge tonal shift. This time it's going back to the spirit of 28 Days Later. This makes me excited for the third one. I'm nervous to say, but if Cillian Murphy's character comes back and brings with it the tone of the original franchise, man, I'm all on board.
Yeah, I think for me, some of these things work a little better. I'm not quite as worried about some of the chaos that I do feel like is being illustrated. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying as well. I don't think this is a flawless film by any means. I do feel like the emotion that is in the first one, where you're watching Spike be a real human being, and then in this second installment with the Bone Temple, where you're watching more of Jimmy be just this nasty running his cult and dispatching of people, I think you're seeing two contrasting ways to handle loss and this crazy world. I'm interested to see how Cillian Murphy's character will come in and fill in some of those gaps where he's been, what he's done, and then how that will contrast with either whoever they bring into it.
I do think the final scene where him and his daughter are looking out over the ridge and they see the zombies chasing the two people. Boom. That is 28 days later. Welcome back to the original franchise, people. What a cool shot. That's what I wanted to see
That was a
through
cool
both
shot.
of these 28-year sequels. But I think I have belabored this point. So let's go ahead and rate 28 years later, The Bone Temple. On a scale of 1 to 5, what do you give it?
I'm going to land at 1.5. I thought the coolest part was the climax with Iron Maiden. None of the performances stuck out to me. The dialogue was not great, but I think it was definitely better than 28 years later.
I don't remember what I gave 28 years later, but to me, I'd look at the 3.5 range.
I'm glad you enjoyed this picture, Eric. Truly, I am. I know most people are, but for me, it didn't work. I'm going to give it 2 stars. Honestly, I'm a bit confused as to why these 28 years later sequels are getting so much love. I'm all in for new ideas, but to me, the franchise has drifted too far from what made it work. A terrifying virus and the brutal, constant fight to survive from the infected. 2 stars for me, but we want to know, what did you think of 28 years later, The Bone Temple? Please tell us. If you're listening to this episode, it's safe to assume that you've seen 28 years later, The Bone Temple. And if you've seen The Bone Temple, it's safe to assume you like human infection films. And if you like human infection films and haven't seen the South Korean breakout horror from 2016, Train to Busan, whoa, you're missing out. Train to Busan carries a relentless, emotionally charged survival tone that blends panic with humanism. The tone is urgent and claustrophobic. The film barely lets up once the breakout begins. Confined spaces, constant forward motion, and rapid escalation create sustained anxiety rather than episodic scares. Check out Train to Busan. I highly recommend it. Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next episode when we look back at 2025 and talk our favorite films of the year. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrek, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up with questions, comments, feedback, review requests, and share this episode with your movie-loving friends.